And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Auburn Undercover podcast, here live on the Auburn Undercover YouTube channel. Christian Clemente, joined tonight by Jason Caldwell, here on signing day eve. Jason, been a busy couple of days, getting all kinds of stuff ready and pre-written and all that kinds of stuff. As we talked about on the show yesterday, just trying to get everything rolling for signing day. For everyone that's tuned in on YouTube, our signing day live updates are already going. There's a ton of live updates over at auburnundercover.com. That story has everything that you could possibly need in terms of when guys are enrolling, when they're signing tomorrow, our final projections, all that kinds of stuff is all in that story, all in one spot. So definitely make sure to go check that out. But here tonight, we're going to do one final video preview, talking about things and answering y'all's questions, probably some portal questions in here as well. Actually, I already see some in the chat. So we'll probably go for another 30 minutes or so like we did last night. Losing my mind here a little bit on Tuesday night, but that's okay. Jason, how you doing ahead of tomorrow?
Yeah, doing good. We this time last night we talked about how really you can kind of feel good about things, but there's still a lot of uncertainty. And this time last night we thought probably the biggest threat for Auburn for Nate Marshall was going to be Texas, and it wound up being a school that he was once committed to. And I guess maybe we shouldn't have been surprised that it was Michigan, considering what's happened with them in the last 2 or 3 weeks in recruiting. Flips to Michigan, and you look at it, and Auburn still kind of, you got Darion Smith, you got others that Auburn still in the picture trying to flip as well. So could be a lot of newsworthy things that happen. I saw a stat today that that 33 Power 4 players have decommitted in the month of December, or flipped in the month of December. Well, that's only 3 days. 3 days, so about 11 a day. That's a pretty good bit in my mind. So I think we'll see a lot more tomorrow. How many of those go Auburn's way? How many of them don't go Auburn's way? We'll find out, and it's almost time.
We're just going to go straight into the chat. We're going to answer y'all's questions. Here's one from Michael, sticking on that topic. Is Auburn still fighting for Nate Marshall? I'm assuming they're talking to him, but I think there's other guys that they're circling back to a little bit, and even a name that you mentioned on Monday, Jason. Guys like Zion Grady, guys like Third Scroggins, Isaiah Gibson. Zion committed to Ohio State. Isaiah Gibson committed to Georgia. Third Scroggins committed to Miami. All former edge guys. Nate Marshall was listed as a defensive lineman. He was always going to be a defensive end, maybe even an edge rusher, buck linebacker type guy. So you look at those guys, and I'm sure they're still talking to Nate, but I would put the odds at that happening at about 1%.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that you go back and forth again. That one feels like it's probably done, considering that it's a place he's familiar with. Yeah, Zion Grady's a guy to maybe pay a little attention to. He's a guy that hasn't visited a bunch in recent, but he knows Auburn a bunch. He's been a bunch of times. He knows his staff. Obviously has a teammate committed in Eric Winters. And so that one would be an interesting one to just kind of pay attention to. We'll see. I don't know that anybody feels one way or another about it, but I think there is a little bit of buzz going on, at least anyway, as you head towards signing day. So these next 10, 12 hours will be really important for a lot of guys, as you get a lot of phone calls and a lot of text messages and trying to finish these things out.
Here's one from Ben Moore. Not sure if this is our Ben Moore, who runs the Georgia State site for 24/7. If it is, good to see you, Ben. But Deuce staying with Auburn, ? I lean yes. I think yes as of right now. Now, Ole Miss is not going to stop calling him and texting him until pen meets paper tomorrow. He's going to sign at 9 a.m. Central Time. But as of right now, I still favor Auburn to hold on there.
Yeah, I think so. There's just no way of knowing for sure until it happens, and I think everybody's that way. No matter who it is, no matter what player it is. I think coaches and not just Auburn coaches. I think coaches all over the country are just going. You're kind of waiting with bated breath to make sure these things happen. And I think Auburn feels good, but again, I think you start looking at it going. With the way things work now, you probably don't ever feel great until it happens. And so I think until that text message with that photo of that paper sign comes in, then I think you'll hear them celebrating, and you'll probably be able to hear it all over Lee County if that happens.
Here's one from Jay. Offered 100% to Auburn. I would not go 100%, but I do like Auburn there still as we sit here on Tuesday night.
Yeah, again, I feel good about Auburn, but we haven't heard anything concrete, and that's the thing. I think this was going to go down to the wire no matter what. I think we felt this way for a while, Christian, that this one was going to go to signing day before you really truly knew what was going on, and it kind of felt like this one, in the spring, even early of summer, it felt like this one was over with. It was done. And boy, since the middle of the summer, for Neem offered to come back so many times, Auburn games, that kind of takes me back a little bit to Deuce. I still come back to that ULM game. That's the one that brings me back with Deuce time and time again. Was that guy played a playoff game the night before and was in Auburn for an 11:45 a.m. kickoff on Saturday morning against Louisiana Monroe. Those things tend to matter, and Neem Offer was a guy that came a bunch. And so we'll see if that's enough to push the Tigers over the top.
Yeah, I feel like with Neem, it all kind of changed when he took his OV there that
Right.
first weekend of June. I mean, and you even think about that was the time they held their first camp. I was just thinking about this. They held an elite camp, and Neem stuck around for a long time.
He
And
walked around a long time.
and Neem was asking you to take pictures of him with Crime and all those guys. He
And
went
with
have to go get
Freeze,
those
everybody
pictures.
else.
Yeah.
It felt like a moment where you go, hey, if this happens, then that was probably the day. It might not have happened that day, but that was the day that really
Tip the scales.
freeze the tracks going towards this one, so to speak.
Here's one from KL. How we feel about Anquan Fagans. Side note, someone replied to that and said AF is a lock. And when I first read AF is a lock, I thought he was talking about Alan Flanagan. I was very lost for a second. That's where my brain is at right now. But Anquan Fagans, feel good about Auburn holding on to him. Look, we mentioned it on last night's show. As long as Charles Kelly is in Auburn on Wednesday, feel really good about him being able to hold on to his guys, and especially of Fagans, which he has known that family for years and years now. Obviously recruited his older brother Traquan back at Alabama. Anquan's other brother, Antoine, I believe his name is on Auburn's roster. So feel good about Auburn holding on to Anquan Fagans. Not sure what time he's signing yet. Haven't heard anything from Thompson, from those guys, except for John L. McGuire, the punter. He said he's sending his stuff in right at 6 a.m. So there you go, up and at it early before playing for a state title game. Question here from Kyle. Caden Salter, some transfer portal talk. Caden Salter, CJ Daniels, and Ahmad Hardy. How we feeling? Caden Salter, the former Liberty quarterback, entering the transfer portal. CJ Daniels, the former LSU and Liberty wide receiver, re-entering the transfer portal. Auburn pursued both of those guys this time last year. Was unable to get Salter for a couple of different reasons, and he went back to Liberty. CJ Daniels went to LSU. And then Ahmad Hardy just played his freshman year at ULM, was a fantastic running back for them, and now he declared that he's going to enter the transfer portal. I don't think he can have contact with anyone until the 9th. His agents, I'm sure, can, though. I'm sure he has some agents. Definitely think Auburn will be after Ahmad Hardy. I think they will absolutely look at CJ Daniels and see what could happen there. And I think Caden Salter will be on the board, but not necessarily at the top of the board.
Yeah, the thing about Caden Salter is that's the guy they know. They've been in a room with. They know who he is, and so that probably gives you a little bit better idea. They also know what he's capable of. We've already seen it. There's some quarterbacks going into the portal that maybe surprise people. I still think there's going to be some that go in that change the game. I mean, people are wondering what would this portal quarterback thing look like. Well, when you look at a guy like Connor Wegman going in today, I mean, that's an elite talent guy. That he hasn't played great, but that's a guy that has a huge amount of upside. And so you start looking at some of the guys, there'll be more guys available. So, and Caden Salter's a guy you look at. The other two guys, I absolutely would expect Auburn to maybe more than kick the tires on a couple of guys like that.
Here's one from Ring, back to high school recruiting. Biggest possible surprise. Jason, I think we're probably both in agreement that it would. I mean, it's starting to get out there now. I think it's been reported by someone else. And, we mentioned earlier in the day that Auburn was kicking the tires back around on some of those former edge guys. Zion Grady, probably the one to watch the closest in terms of surprise, because we were not talking about him much over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, that would classify as a surprise. And listen, and as Matt said, like you look and go, when this staff got here, one of the focal points for them was to recruit the state of Alabama. And we've seen it now. They got 8 out of the top 10. If you were to get Naeem Alford and Zion Grady, you would have all 10 of the top players in Alabama, which would have never happened before in my memory for anybody. And to do it in a really good year makes it even crazier. And I talked with Philip Marshall. We were kind of kicking some things around maybe yesterday or the day before, and we were talking about even during the Tuberville days when Alabama wasn't very good and Auburn was getting the majority of its players. I think the most I found was 6 out of the top 10, and those were not classes where the 10th and 11th guy were what you would consider blue chip prospects. It was just wasn't as much top end talent in the state. Now you look, and this is a state that continues to churn out really good players and more of them every year. If you're able to get all 10 of the top 10 prospects in the state of Alabama, to me, that would be as impressive a statement for Auburn football and for Hugh Freeze as anything I can remember in a long time.
Yeah, here's a question from 5. Already touched on Anquan Fagans a little bit, but asked for an update on Donovan Starr. Got kind of an interesting update on him Tuesday morning, one that kind of bodes well for Auburn, actually. He told me that he's not planning to sign until Friday. He wants to kind of wait and see how things play out a little bit. He's definitely watching what happens with Naeem Offord if he ends up in Auburn's class. What happens with some of the other guys, like a guy like Shamar Arnaud as well. Because, if Auburn got Naeem Offord and kept its current guys, that put them at 5 cornerback commitments. Look, I think Donovan Starr really, really, really likes Auburn. Tom Loy was in our thread earlier, dropping a little bit of scoop, and then also talking about Donovan Starr. He said, I think his heart's at Auburn. I think his head right now is at Alabama, and he's kind of trying to balance between those two. And I would not disagree on that. And so he's going to take a little bit of extra time to go into Friday and try and come to a decision. We'll see what happens, but the fact that he's delaying, I do think helps out Auburn here and gives them a little bit more of a chance to keep fighting. One from TCB, any 5-star level guys in the D-line that you think we can get to come make an immediate impact? Justice Terry, obviously, in terms of guys not committed, he's a 5-star who just, Jason, your player comp for him is Derek Brown, and Justice Terry has been a freak show since he was in the 8th grade, where the viral picture came out of him just looking like a monster, and he looks that way for sure. Jason, you're muted right now.
Sorry. Justice Terry's the guy that you look at as a potential guy, but you look at, Malik Autry and Jordan Crawford and Antonio Coleman. Malik Autry is a 5-star guy. The other guys aren't 5-star guys, but we believe those guys are immediate impact players in this class for different reasons. Jordan Crawford, immediate impact guy, because he is literally a brick that's walking around on a football field. That's what he is, and powerful, explosive. Antonio Coleman is a guy that just knows how to play football. And think about Dontavius Russell type guy with a guy like Antonio Coleman. And Dontavius Russell was a guy that stepped on the field and played early and played a lot. And then you look at Malik Autry, and Malik Autry, I kind of went back and forth, and I went back to Dexter Lawrence, and that's a high bar because that guy's really, really good. But you think about the body, 6'5", Dexter Lawrence was 335, 340 coming out of high school. And you look at Malik Autry and going, look, if he can channel that the way Dexter Lawrence was able to as a freshman, then that's a guy. We've seen Malik Autry at his best be really, really good. Can you get there? And that's where a strength and conditioning program, training table, all those things come in. And you look at Malik Autry and going, but if you get Malik Autry at 6'5", 320, then all of a sudden you look at a guy that's able to sustain it and play for a longer period of time, rotate guys. And man, we just saw Malik Blockton, and you add these guys in there and potentially add an older portal guy, got Bobby James and Travis. That's a much more capable defensive line. You won't be as experienced, but that's a much more capable offensive line when you start talking, defensive line, when you start talking about what they can do.
Question here from Sean. What is your level of confidence and percentage for Justice Terry, Naeem Offord, Deuce Knight, and Dante Core? Justice Terry, I have him at 45% on my hot board, my big board, just because I still favor Georgia there. Name offered, I have him at 60. I'd maybe put him at 65. 60 to 65, I think is fair. Deuce, I would put anywhere from 80 to 90%. Dante Core, I would put 0 to 5%. I don't think Auburn is really still involved there. Jason, would you wildly disagree with any of those, or kind of the same?
No, yeah, I think Dante Core's a guy I think that ship has sailed. Yeah, and so I think you look at the other guys, I think Auburn is giving themselves a shot. And again, I probably a little bit more of over 50% for Name offered there. That one's still one that you never know because of, I mean, it's Ohio State, and you look at the things they've done.
I said in Oregon as well.
Yeah,
that's not a school that's fun to recruit against.
Correct. And I mean, those are two heavyweights. So yeah, but yeah, I would think I'm pretty close to where you are too.
Here's one from Auburn fan 123. Chance we could get Dice back in, or another surprise offensive tackle? No surprise offensive tackles really that I think.
It doesn't feel that way. We've seen a couple of guys flip around here or there. If something like that happened, would it blow me out of the water nowadays? Probably not. Would I be surprised? Yeah. The Dice one, Christian, I mean, Auburn's they're still going to go recruit him, but it doesn't feel like that one.
15 to 20% kind of.
Yeah. This is where I think that you look at it, knew that Auburn was going. And here's the other part of this. Dice could be an offensive tackle. I think we both feel like he's probably better suited to be an interior guy down the road anyway. And so you look at it, Auburn were probably going to get at least a couple of offensive tackles in the portal. So that was always going to be on the table, no matter if you get Dice in this class or not. So, I think they'll continue to go after him. But I don't think – here's the other thing. I don't think that's a guy that next year is an impact player as an offensive tackle for Auburn. So I don't think it's a 2025 big hurt. Obviously, it's a guy that – we feel like it's going to be a really good player, but it wasn't going to be a guy that was going to be an impact player next season, and I don't believe.
Yeah, before we keep going, if y'all are not subscribed to the Auburn Undercover YouTube channel, make sure to do that down below. Totally free, does not cost you anything, and we greatly appreciate it. Here's one from Corey that we can just touch on super quick. If we get Deuce, what's the chances of flipping Caleb Cunningham? About 0%. That ship has sailed. He's going to sign with Ole Miss tomorrow. Caleb, that is. Deuce, right now, we still expect to sign with Auburn. Question here from Jonathan, a handful of these similar questions in the chat as well. Does Auburn land a top 5 class? Auburn right now still sitting at number 5, even after losing Nate Marshall. I say yes. I still think Auburn signs a top 5 class because I think Auburn gets Neem offered, and that alone probably leapfrogs them over. It'll put them very close to Texas, who's number 4, and Ohio State is number 3. Ohio State would probably drop all the way down, and I don't know if it would put them over Texas or not, but you'd probably leapfrog Ohio State or be pretty close in the process.
Yeah, I think you're looking one of the two Ohio State guys, if you were to land, would be a big deal. If you were to get both of those Ohio State guys, I don't think there's any question then that you're probably 3 or 4 by the time the dust settles. And we hadn't talked about adding a Darion Smith, maybe something like that. So yeah, I think Auburn's got a great chance to be a top 5 class. Right, and I mentioned last night, if you're top 5, 6, and there's a hair separating you from even if you're 7, that's where you have to be in that kind of ballpark. I went back and looked up again last night. Talked to Dave Bartu a couple of years ago. It was right before Georgia played TCU in the national championship game. Going into that game, TCU was a team that was not a top 10 recruiter. Over the last 23 years going into that game, counting that game, there were exactly 6 teams that weren't a top 10 recruiter that played for a national championship. Out of the 46 teams that played, only 6 of them weren't a top 10. That's over a 4-year period. Consistent top 10 recruiter. One of those was Auburn, and you had Cam Newton. One of those was Virginia Tech, and you had Michael Vick. One of those was Clemson early on, and you had Deshaun Watson. So you think about the teams that made it. You had an elite NFL historic quarterback. If you don't have that guy, then you better have a bunch of good players. And this is a class that'll kind of lead you that way.
Question here from Brody. Derek Smith still good there? From everything I've heard, yes. Him and his brother Eric plan to sign at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Similar question here from Jay. Alvin still a lock? Again, everything that I've heard, yes, still feel good there. Portal question here from Braden. What about Kevin Concepcion? I think is how you pronounce his name, from NC State, the wide receiver. Definitely one of the best transfer wide receivers in the portal as of right now. I think that's a guy that Auburn will absolutely try and make a run at, but I'm sure just about every school in the country will do the same.
Yeah, no, he is a legit game breaker. I watched him play a couple of times this year. That's a guy that I believe. I'll be really surprised if he's not the top overall wide receiver target in the portal. If he's not, he'll be the top 2 or 3. And so you look at it, and that one may come down to what your quarterback is, who your quarterback is. To get a guy like that, then it might be, okay, hey, we're bringing this quarterback in. Here's the guys you're going to be playing with. Okay, come on. And so that could maybe be the determining factor on maybe what a portal wide receiver or 2 looks like is what that quarterback looks like.
Here's one from Blackbird. Auburn looking at any high school place kickers for PWO? Not that I've heard of, but potentially getting a transfer kicker is not necessarily out of the question, depending on the health of Alex McPherson, and what's kind of happening there. We touched on that on last night's show. Braden again, are we still locked in with Eric Winters? Yep, all good there. Eric said that he's pretty well shut things down and that is over with. Have a ton of questions here, just trying to get some ones that we have not touched on already. Here's one from Alex. How we feel about Jared Smith? I actually feel pretty good there. I feel like Auburn, look, you never say never, but it feels like Auburn has kind of steadied the boat there a little bit after some rocky waters throughout the fall for a little bit, going to see South Carolina twice, going to see Ole Miss. Feel like Auburn's in a good position to hold on to Jared Smith. Jason, would you agree?
I would. Again, I think that's one. Obviously, South Carolina's been there. We've seen Ole Miss try to push, but we felt like kind of that one. I thought proximity, even though South Carolina's not a long way away, I kind of felt like proximity was going to be really important for this one for Auburn, and having Caleb Harris and Quan Fagans, having some of those guys there, I thought was going to be important too, and that it feels like that's going to be a big deal for Jared Smith.
Here's one from Ricky, back to the transfer portal. Could Auburn go after Micah Hudson, the Texas Tech transfer wide receiver who played only in a handful of games this year at Texas Tech, former 5-star receiver in last year's class? I know Auburn did like him in that class, but pulling kids out of Texas is really tough, and Texas Tech kind of randomly got that one. I think Auburn will look at him and will try and make a run out of the portal, but I think it'll be tough to beat the likes of a Texas A&M, schools like that. I would definitely still favor those schools to probably keep him. But again, he only declared his intention to enter the transfer portal, and he can't actually enter until the 9th. So we're still 6 days away from that. Right now, it's all just schools talking to his agent and trying to get things set up for once he's actually in the portal. Kind of a statement here from Jambo. If we get Zion and Justice Terry, that would
you do that and keep the guys you have in this class on that defensive line. Darian Smith, you add or don't add, even if you don't add that guy and you add those guys right there, that would be. We talked about what Auburn's done wide receiver last year, what Auburn's done in the secondary and some other play. You talking about a defensive line group that would be able to match up with just about anybody.
One from Mo. Has Auburn stayed in contact with Tyler Lockhart or Jaden Perlotti? Not that I know of. Lockhart, maybe they would call him tonight at midnight, say, hey, what's up? But I haven't heard Perlotti's name in a long time, and really have not heard Lockhart either since he did not end up back in the class and went to Mississippi State.
We thought for a couple of weeks that it was just a matter of whenever he announced that he was there, and he never did it. And I think for Auburn, they were like, okay, that was the opportunity. Once that didn't happen, move on. And I think cementing your linebacker last night was a big deal for them and helped to probably ease some things as far as that's concerned.
Here's one from the man Blake. Love Blake, see him around a good bit. What is your percentage confidence in the Justice Terry noise? Is it complete BS? I would not say it's complete BS. I would not say it's BS at all, but I would just still definitely favor Georgia. Like I said earlier, 45%, 40%, somewhere in that range. I think Auburn is absolutely in the ball game. Kenyatta Watson is a big reason why. He's known that family. He's known that kid for a long time. Vontrell King-Williams as well. Look, Vontrell is grinding on this one.
Yeah.
He went to his game last Friday night before the Iron Bowl, and it was an away game, kind of in the eastern part of Georgia. It was a trek away from Manchester, to the point where he had to fly to Tuscaloosa to get back for the game on Saturday just to go see him play on Friday. So they're trying. They're absolutely in it. And Auburn is closer to Manchester than Athens is to Manchester, but he's still in the state of Georgia. And I'm still going to favor an in-state 5-star going to Georgia before I'm going to favor Auburn.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, I wouldn't say it's a long shot, but I would say that that you're going to have to make up some ground here to close this thing out.
Another one from Blackbird. Any word if Auburn will go after a transfer portal punter? Former All-American but walk-on punter for Auburn's roster, Gabe Russo, entered the transfer portal, or said that he was going to enter the portal earlier today. John Allen McGuire coming in, also an All-American in this year's class, supposed to be a scholarship guy. Portal guy, I could see them going after a one-year guy if the right guy pops up.
Yeah, I think you could see a guy that's experienced, has punted to bring in, just to, if for nothing else, to give you a second guy, because none of the other guys that you have on campus, sometimes you'll have a kicker that's also a punter. None of the other guys that you have on campus are other punters. Malcolm Simmons right now would probably be your other punter for this team. And hey, he would love nothing better than to have a shot to be Auburn's punter next year. But I don't think they're going to be interested in doing that with as much as he's done on offense already.
Although that would be so much fun. I really want to see him get a couple kicks out there. I mean,
I do too, because
I want to see how a coverage team tries to deal with that and how they set up to.
All right, yeah, or a punt block team. I don't think there's going to be too many people racing upfield to go block a punt if Malcolm's punting.
Yes. Here's one from Jay. Any chance on a tight end tomorrow or in the portal? Auburn will sign Hollis Davidson and Ryan G tomorrow, and then look to the portal for 1 to 2 guys, we think.
Yeah.
There's no other tight ends that I've heard of at all in the 25 class that would join those 2 tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know that you'd go 3 high school tight ends in one class, and I think you'll probably try to find a portal guy that has maybe a couple of years experience already, and then Brandon Frazier planning to return would give you that older veteran guy back on the roster as well. So that kind of space them out a little bit. I think that would be ideal.
Here's one from Ben again, who said that he is not our Georgia State 24/7 reporter, but asking about Usman Kroma, going to announce his final decision sometime tomorrow, time unknown as of right now. Auburn's still in the mix. Florida State, old Gus down there in the mix now as well, trying to flip him away from Georgia. I'm still favoring Georgia. It's the same as Justice Terry. I've got it at 40 to 45%. Think maybe even a little. I would go 40% for Kroma. I think Auburn had I don't want to say they had a chance, but it almost felt like you needed to get something done when he visited for Texas A&M, and it didn't happen then. Now you were trying to set up for signing day, but it just, I don't know. To me, it kind of feels like that one. That was your chance to potentially strike. And look, Auburn made an impact, and Auburn's still talking to him. I just don't quite see it there for him right now. Here's one from Kyle. JJ Falk, a lock. Absolutely 100%. I will bet you. I should be careful on this. I'll bet you $50 that he signs with
feel
Auburn
like that one is for sure a lock. I mean, Keldrick his brother had such a huge year, and obviously being able for those guys to play together for one more year, because I believe that's all we'll see Keldrick Falk is for another year. But I think that one would be, you want to go talking about of all the things that could happen tomorrow, that would probably be the biggest surprise for me, was if JJ Falk did something other than with Auburn.
Here's one from Luke. More confidence in Zion Grady or Justice Terry? Zion Grady.
Got to be Zion Grady. Yeah. I mean, and that's with obviously not a whole lot of other than just, hey, do we think this one is potential? But yeah, you look at in-state, that it plays into it as much as anything for us.
Here's one, Mr. CEO. This might be a Michigan fan hopping in the stream, saying Nate Marshall with the Michigan M. Mister, if you're still here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate you tuning in tonight. Here's one from our wonderful intern, Patrick. Might bring a cake tomorrow. Flavor preference. Jason, that question I'll toss to you.
I don't know. Red velvet's always good. So I don't know if we want to do red tomorrow, though. So maybe we'll do can't go wrong with anything chocolate as well. So we'll be all right.
There we go. Braden, do you think we stand good with any portal linebackers? Think it's a little too early, but
Correct.
definitely think Auburn will go after one or two older guys there.
Yeah,
Raise
it's
the
just
cap.
you have to kind of let the dust settle, and then once you, because what you don't do right now is, and if you got to have a feel like that, maybe there's some other guys that are going to come in. If there's a guy that you absolutely love and he's one of your top guys, then you'll probably start to go. And again, right now it's okay. What's this guy look like? Do we feel like this guy can play for us and do some of those things? But yeah, I don't know that you're starting to narrow down any list quite yet.
Sticking with the portal, Jambo again. Is Auburn going after Connor Wegman from Texas A&M? I think he'll get a look.
I absolutely get a look. I mean, look at him, and you kind of waiting for, can he be the guy that takes that next step? We kind of saw other, Cade Klubnik do it a little bit for Clemson this year and kind of take off. And Auburn, I think, has better receivers than Clemson does. So you go, man, what could you look like if it all comes together? I think that's a guy that you look at. I think he will be a pretty heavy priority guy for folks because of his experience.
One from Braden. Any major worries of guys leaving Auburn's class? Shamar or no? Keeping an eye on Florida State there.
We saw
Donovan
today.
Starr.
Yeah, we saw today that sometimes you might not have a worry and something might pop up. I mean, that's just, I can promise you this. I don't know that there'll be anybody in that Auburn football building that's going to sleep very well tonight.
They're probably sleeping at the facility if they are sleeping.
Yeah, nor any other school around the country. I just that's the way it is right now. Everybody's going to be worried to death and concerned until this thing gets done.
One from Alex. Any transfer cornerback? I kind of doubt it, honestly. As long as the guys that you still have, and Kay and Lee and Jay Crawford and Champ Anthony and Tyler Scott, if those guys are coming back healthy, I
agree. That one be the one that may be down the list because of the experience that you'll have now after these guys have played. I think a lot of that may depend on Champ Anthony and hey, how well do you feel like he's going to recover from that just a brutal injury? And he was on his feet walking around in Tuscaloosa and hyped up after a couple of those turnovers, doing some things. So I think if you get that guy back of that experience and you add these young guys in, that would feel like, I guess you never say never, but that would feel like it was a spot where you'd probably go, hey, if we keep the guys we got, we're in pretty good shape.
This is a bit of a doozy of a question from Sean, but I do want to touch on it. Way too early, but do y'all think if Hugh is coach after next year, percent chance of the 2026 class finishing higher than the 2025 class? Basically saying, hey, Auburn does well enough next year that Hugh is still here after next season. What will the 2026 class look like compared to 2025?
Yeah.
It's so early. I think it'll be around the same.
I agree. You start looking at what the 26 class looks like, and you have to start in the state of Alabama, and you go like, what does that class look like when you start talking about in-state guys and some of those. So yeah, it's hard to figure it out, but I would say that it'll be another really good class. If you go out and take a step or two forward on the field and continue to show improvement, and it starts to show up in wins and losses even more next year, then I think they're already off to a good start in the 26 class. But I don't know that you'd sign a number one class in the country quite yet, unless you go out and really do something crazy.
Here would be my caveat to that. If you want to go from that 4 to 6 range where we think the 2025 class will kind of finish, you need to get one or maybe both of Cedarian Morgan and Anthony Tate Jones out of the state of Alabama, keep them at Auburn, because those guys are both 5-star talents, ranked as 5-star talents. If you get both of those guys, you have a chance to get into the 1 to 3 range in the rankings. So long way to go there, but a fun question. Here's one from Pace. How confident are you we keep Elijah Melendez? Extremely. He told me last night on Monday night that he's signing with Auburn tomorrow. So feel very good there in terms of that. One from Hugh, not Hugh Freeze though. Are we still solid with Sam Turner? By all accounts, yes. Feel very good about him signing there.
He tweeted something out tonight about signing tomorrow, War Eagle, all that stuff. So yeah, I feel pretty good about that one too.
we'll touch on just a couple more questions here in the chat and then wrap it up. We still have a little bit of work we need to get done to get ready for tomorrow. One from Kyle. What about Jaleel Hurley, the Alabama defensive back transfer? Haven't heard much about that. Would be a little surprised.
Yeah, and you look and because of the classes you're bringing in at really the entire secondary and playing so many young guys right now, I don't know that you're going to go a whole deep into the transfer world for the secondary right now. You look back there at safety and you go, Caleb Harris and Sylvester Smith. You bring in Anquan Fagans and Eric Winters, and then the guys you still have on campus. Corners, the same thing. That would be one where to go get a guy to the portal would be going. We're going to go get a guy that's going to be 1 year and an NFL draft pick. That's probably the only thing you would do if you had a chance like that out of the portal. And Jaleel Hurley's not a guy that's ready to take that step.
All right, we're going to rapid fire a couple here and then wrap it up. Another one from Hugh. Could Trent Seaborn change to 26? That's probably possible, but haven't really heard anything there, so don't know, to be honest.
But that 26 quarterback class in the state of Alabama.
27.
I mean, a 27 class, yes, it's loaded. But 26, even really looking forward to seeing Landon Duckworth this week. He was at the Texas A&M game, big quarterback from Jackson. Christian, we saw him the other day. It looked like he's about 6'5", 215, really athletic. Really want to see him in person to kind of see. We've seen him, Xavier Crowell, his teammate, running back's a freak. They got a couple of junior receivers that are really good. I want to see Landon Duckworth as a 26 quarterback this week. I'm looking forward to
that. Another one from Alex. What about Julian Humphrey, the Georgia cornerback transfer? Do not think that will be a major target. One from Scott. Is Walker White going to stay? Absolutely expect him to stay as of now. And then, Jason, we will wrap things up with a little bit more of a fun question here from Brad. Whoops, that was not the right question. From Brad. How much sleep do you guys think you get tonight? Probably plan to go to bed around midnight, somewhere around there. I always like to get to midnight so that way I can pop in the live updates, maybe put something on Twitter, say welcome to signing day, and then go to bed. Probably wake up around 4:45 or 5 sometime tomorrow, if I had to guess.
Yeah, because throwing a wrench into signing day this year is the fact that we have signing day. So obviously we'll be on campus and kind of rolling through that for much of the day. We don't get Hugh Freeze until 3 o'clock. We have Thompson, Central Phoenix City at 7 o'clock tomorrow in downtown Birmingham. So as soon as we can get done and get a few stories up, we're going to hit the road to Birmingham. Making it even more difficult is Nathan will be working remotely in Durham, North Carolina, because Auburn basketball plays Duke tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. So, the sleep tonight may be more than we get tomorrow night by the time we get done with this day.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long day, gonna be a fun day, gonna be a crazy day. If y'all are not over at auburnundercover.com, definitely make sure to come check us out over there. Live updates are already rolling. The signing day HQ story is up. It has everything that you could possibly need, I think. It has final projections. It has what time guys are signing tomorrow. When the commits are going to be joining in terms of when they're enrolling at Auburn, all that kinds of stuff, class ranking, commit list, where it ranks in the SEC, all that kinds of stuff, all in signing day HQ right over at auburnundercover.com. So appreciate everyone tuning in here tonight. Like I said earlier, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure to do that. That does not cost you anything, and we appreciate it greatly. Jason, any final thoughts going into tomorrow?
Just looking forward to it. Just like as I mentioned last night, it's so different than it was the first time I did this. I guess I'm trying to think. It was 1999, so this was 25th, 26th, or whatever. So it's just such a different time, but it's still an exciting time when you think about this day because of, obviously rosters change more than ever, but this is still when you start thinking about program building, and this is such a important time. And so just looking forward to it, see what happens, and come hang out with us all day, like we know a lot of you will. We're looking forward to it.
Yep. So we'll catch you all over at auburnundercover.com. Appreciate everyone for tuning in here tonight. Hope to have some sort of a signing day show available for y'all tomorrow, whenever that becomes possible. We'll see. It depends on when we can sneak in some time before or after Freeze's presser, before or after the Super 7 game. So stay tuned for that, but I promise we will get something to y'all. Thanks again for tuning in, and catch you tomorrow.